All right, welcome, Lauren Ellis. It's great to have you here. You're from the UK, right? London.
Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
yes.
I'm over here in Dublin, and we're quite close, 45 minutes flight away. Uh, so
Brilliant.
yeah, but you've never been to Dublin.
No, no, but I'm definitely making plans to go there.
Well, it's great to have you here today. I love what you do. I was just telling you about it. It circles around almost a forbidden area.
Yeah.
And it takes courage to even speak about it. Then it takes even more courage to say, "Hey, I'm the expert. I'm going to show you how. I'm going to help you with it." And that was one of the first things that stood out for me: the courage. Where did that all come from for you?
Okay, so I have kind of had like a very complex journey into like coaching because like I didn't really know much about like entrepreneurship. I just knew that working a traditional 9 to 5 job didn't really work for me just because of I wouldn't necessarily say that it was like the job role in itself. It was just the energy of the people that I was working with, and it didn't matter like where I went. There
Hmm.
was like a core vibration of dissatisfaction with a lot of the workers, and even down to something like kind of expressing those concerns management, and as it had kind of been set up, there was just this consistency of things not being kind of met. So I was like, okay, I don't want to come home from a day at work and feel um, sort of like, um, I don't know, like just kind of like unfulfilled
Hmm.
in like all of those areas. And like I went to university and I got my degree
Hmm.
in linguistics. And through that, because I was working very closely with clinical professionals such as speech and language therapists and pediatricians, I found that there was something very rewarding in the way that they worked, but I found that something was missing from that whole unit. And that's where I kind of came up with the cosmic tantra method. And here we are. And it's kind of through my own um, trauma healing journey that I've kind of got here and got to a place where I feel like I'm ready to kind of draw upon my experiences to get um, the same sort of transformation that I have had through the kind of like the teething issues that are currently just not being sorted with like the national health system. And I'm basically bridging that gap with my services.
Hmm. Wow, that's uh, that's interesting. That the inward work. What's trauma to you? I have so many questions, all at once, and they're coming to me all at once. You know,
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
inner work, the inner journey there, the tantra, cosmic. Every one of those words, is deeply rooted in something. But let's talk about trauma. What is trauma?
Okay, so for me, I feel that trauma is something that causes a person a significant amount of stress.
Hmm.
And it's not to the point where it's something where you say, oh, just meditate or like just think of something happy and this thing will go away. It's something that is deeply troubling to that particular person. And it kind of stays with them for a prolonged period of time. And then from that point, it will mean that that person is unable to do things that they once enjoyed. So the interest in things that once set their heart on fire, all of a sudden, like slowly but surely, like that fire within them kind of like depletes. And then before you know it, comes like soon comes the isolation and the kind of like lashing out at people that are close to them, and then the detachment kind of comes through friendships and like relationships as well. And then it's just kind of like getting that person being stuck in a rut. That's kind of like how I kind of see trauma. And it's just that kind of the process of like being like carefree at one moment and then slowly kind of slipping away and not really knowing who that person actually is in the core because of this particular traumatic event or this like trauma topic.
Wow. So from what I get, and correct me, I'm gonna try to say what I got from that.
Mhm.
Trauma is almost frozen energy. You know,
Yeah,
based on a certain level of stress. You know, whether emotional, whatever physical, based on a certain level of stress. You know, so the energy there is frozen, and
yeah,
moving on, that causes a kind of a blockage of a certain flow or circulation. You know,
yeah,
way and life experience, and we might not know where it's coming from, so part of your work now deals with going into to find whether do you need to go there and find the exact block.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. So what kind of happens at the moment, or what I've experienced with a lot of therapies that are out there right now, is that they're very analytical and they're very robotic. So it's like having like an hour session, and it's like, okay, so let's work on something, but instead of going to the source, like going into the cells and kind of unpicking exactly what is going on in that particular moment, what kind of triggered that thing, and really kind of tapping into the psyche of that particular person, there is a lot of sort of like, I call it fluff. It's kind of like slaps a band-aid on the surface. And so the core emotions, the things that are difficult to work through, are still there. It just seems like it's being taken care of right now because of that like 1 hour session. And then there are no real like concrete systems that are in place outside of those isolated sessions. And
mm,
that kind of where I come in.
mm,
So I could work very well with a therapist,
mm,
or I can work kind of like in isolation and still be able to provide the full package.
mm. Okay. I like how you said in those sessions. So the
Yeah,
sessions become a different life experience, separate from their real life experience. So almost like
yeah,
when you come to these sessions, they're not coming to this session almost as a different dimension of their existence. Almost okay, they're coming here and they're being this person and feeling this way, but when they
yeah,
leave, going back to the ordinary world.
exactly. So there is still that disconnect. And a lot of people I've seen through like studies and stuff, like they seem to kind of go back to that kind of that way of thinking that is somewhat toxic, because they've been almost like given this false sense of security, because they have been kind of told and they've been led to believe that in this like 1 hour session all of their problems are going to be solved. But the question is like, what happens after that? So with a lot of the services that are available after that particular session, there is no contact the with the therapist. So the person is left feeling isolated again, and they aren't able to kind of go back and get that additional help unless they pay more money. And sometimes that's not achievable, especially for people who need things to happen like now, so like crisis lines and stuff like that. And also kind of going into that, there's a lot of there's like so much kind of backlog, especially with what's going on in the world right now. it's just too clogged up. So the waiting times, especially for those who are in need, like they've got to wait for ages, and things can happen in that time. There's just not enough people, and there is simply not enough resources that are able to help those who need them at the moment that they need them. It's always like, oh, ring up and we will see when we can fit you in. But when you are in like the absolute depths of despair, that's not what you want to hear. You need something that is going to help you to cope in that moment, so you feel like there is something, like you've got control of everything. It's all about taking that control.
Yes, to handle the stress, something in your real world. So here's what I'm hearing now is that therapy is good. This is not taken away from therapy. It's very good, right?
Yeah.
Have you done therapy yourself?
Yes, I have.
Yes. So you're like, I've done therapy. Therapy is good. That's not what we're saying. But therapy is not sufficient for the transformation that you seek.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
that's a process. It helps you get into the blockages, and now you start to identify trauma.
Mhm.
However, healing of the trauma, which happens in the everyday life, you
Yeah.
know, that that there needs to be a transformation, a transformational shift. Therapy is good. It starts a process, but that is not sufficient, and this is where the cosmic tantra comes in.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. And do you think it's also because of the transactional nature of therapy?
Yes, I definitely feel that that is something that kind of closes a lot of people off from seeking therapy. And the way that I have kind of felt, even from personal experience, is that yes, they are there to provide a service, but that is literally all that it is, because of the high demand for therapy. That connection, that authentic connection, and that's the word that I kind of want to emphasize here, like authentic, that magical connection that allows that person to feel empowered, to actually get to like feel like they can actually heal through doing the work. And instead of saying like, oh, therapy is something that is scary because there's a lot of stuff to do, like needing to see those quick wins is something I'm so passionate about, and that's kind of what I'm all about. I've kind of like restructured and kind of shaken up how therapy is kind of seen
Mm,
and how it's experienced as well,
mm,
and also with like the nurturing way in which I kind of approach people, and instead of it, so it's more like solution focused.
focused.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the most part, look, we know there are problems. Your therapists have already told you your problems, right? you,
Yeah.
you personally know your problems, but like that. Well, hey, let's talk solutions. Are you not tired of being? Let's look. Let's take a different approach. So, what's tantra? We heard the word being thrown around, and I heard that the word is about 5,000, 6,000 years old. And
Yeah.
I've heard two different meanings of what tantra is. I'm very interested to what your perception and perspective on tantra is. What's tantra for you?
Okay, so from like through my lens, I see tantra as like an expression of your true self, but it's not just through being like intimate in like the kind of sexual way. It's more about like focusing on the journey. And with the cosmic tantra method, I'm zooming out. So with tantra, it's all about the journey. It's not just about the destination and like the end point, which is like where I'm seeing a lot of people kind of focused when it comes to tantra. So it's more about the like enjoying the whole experience. So it's like the whole package, and it's not just being like kind of like laser focused on like the result, but it's also kind of taking stock of what happens along the journey and kind of seeing that progress. And then with that, it allows that expression to come through the like womb space or sacred space of the person who is kind of healing from trauma. And with Tantra, once a lot of the emotions which are stored in the kind of like root chakra, which is kind of based around the kind of genitalia area, that is kind of a new voice that is allowed to kind of be expressed. And once that's sort of activated and explored, it gives a lot of people a new perspective through which to kind of understand how they operate, and then understanding something called love languages, which is another amazing way to kind of like soothe yourself and understand how you work. Because once you kind of learn about your body and understand really where everything kind of started, you can kind of start to like relay the foundations and then build up from there. And that kind of comes with like different benefits, such as confidence, because you know what you want, you understand your personal boundaries, and then through that, like once you know what's going on with yourself, you can then communicate that effectively to somebody else.
Okay, so I want to take like 3, 5, 7 words, to register tantra as a new meaning in my mind. What are those? How would you explain it? How would you give it to me? How would you define it for me?
Okay. Okay, tantra is intuitive, intuitively guided, an intuitively guided process that encompasses evolution or like transformation.
So intuitively guided process that encompasses
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah.
So what brought you to tantra? The whole world of tantra. It's not something you come across going about your usual day.
No, no. So like I have basically been like um really I would say fascinated in the beginning stages with everything to do with spirituality, but for a good, I would say like 5 years, I just saw things like crystals and tarot cards, and I was like, oh, they look nice. Oh, I'm just going to pick up a crystal because it looks pretty. And then I literally had like a massive bunch of them, and they just stayed on my shelf for the longest time. And then it wasn't until I was actually involved in a car accident that it kind of like activated my ability to really understand what spirituality was about. Because on the surface level, everything that allowed this event to happen in the physical realm, I shouldn't be here like talking to you. So I'm somebody who is yet again like solution focused, and I'm still trying to connect the dots. And now the only explanation based on like how my brain was functioning as this was all going on is spirituality. So there is a reason that I'm here. And so like the reason that I'm still here. And now I'm kind of devoting my time to helping others feel that way. And um, the way that I've kind of allowed this process to kind of flourish is that there have been like certain phases. So I kind of segued into it through learning about like being expressive and understanding the world of manifestation and things like that. And then I think I was listening to a podcast and it was talking about orgasmic manifestation, and then that like piqued my interest. I was like, oh, what's that? And then came the world of tantra, and I was like, oh, let me see what this is about. And then it was just kind of like, it was talking more about the destination, and I was like, okay, well, let me see if I can unpack this through like shadow work and kind of working on those areas of trauma that are really triggering for me.
Mm. Wow. So you mentioned shadow work. What's that? There are some things we just hear around being thrown around, and sometimes
Uh-huh.
in the middle of all of those things being thrown around, you kind of think you understand it, and you're sitting
Yeah.
there, you're assuming you know it, and you might not, because it's being thrown around by from different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was that?
Okay, so shadow work is the process of looking inwardly and finding out the the things that kind of make you feel a potentially negative emotion. So things such as anxiety, jealousy, things like depression, things like that. So if there are certain situations like public speaking, for instance, you would unpack that and you would go through a certain set of activities to help understand, where did this come from? Why am I feeling like this? Who did I come into contact with at what age that allowed me to think this particular feeling or emotion? And then once you kind of understand that aspect of it, it comes more naturally to think, okay, so these are the feelings that are mine, and the other feelings are not mine. And then, like, to kind of go further into that, it's all about understanding that the feelings that are not belonging to you, like, they get released. And then that's kind of like one of those things where it's like, just let go.
How do you identify those feelings?
Oh, sorry, say that again.
How do you identify the feelings that are not yours?
It can vary from person to person. So yet again, this is all about finding and like building that safe space, not only within your body, but your mind as well. So kind of doing things like meditation, but I know that doesn't always work for people. So what I always encourage people to do is journal. Like, I've got so many notebooks, and I wake up of a morning and I just write everything out, and there is literally no filter. I get comfortable. I make this space something that I enjoy doing. So I put music on, I make myself a cup of tea. So it's comfortable for me. It's not something that is daunting. And then, like, all of those emotions just flow out. But in the beginning stages, it can be difficult to kind of like trust your brain to bring things up without the 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 impulse to want to try and stop that potentially painful thing to come up. But in order to see what you need to deal with, or what kind of is within you, you need to let it, you need to kind of accept it. This is like the first step.
Hmm.
And yeah, so definitely journaling is something that is kind of like the initial step, just to get it out there. And then like the plan of action comes after that as well.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
That's
You,
okay.
you came up with cosmic tantric methodology, and
Uh-huh.
what's that?
Okay, so the cosmic tantra method is an all-inclusive way to go through shadow work. So it takes the guesswork out of what the next step is in terms of healing. So like I said previously, like with therapy, after that initial session, there is some guesswork because there is no contact time with the therapist outside of those areas. But with the cosmic tantra method, it is more than just shadow work exercises, because everybody can like quickly Google shadow work exercises, but it all comes with being comfortable, because when you're comfortable, you can feel safe doing something. And especially with trauma, it is quite a delicate subject. And because different people have different triggers, you can't approach every single trauma event in exactly the same way. So this is fully customizable, and it basically allows the person to go through at their own rate with the like the contact time with me as well. So then I'm able to like diffuse a situation if a particular trigger comes up, or if there's like an unexpected trigger as well. And there's different aspects as well. So it kind of,
and I like your message. You say guiding results driven professionals to emotional mastery, in
yes.
90 days using shadow work and flow.
Mhm.
What's that?
Okay, so emotional mastery, it can be seen as being quite subjective, but ultimately I want the like the client to feel empowered to go into a situation that on day one they felt like it wasn't possible for them to do, and think, okay, I know exactly how to navigate this particular situation. And if I am kind of faced with anything that is potentially triggering, I have a toolkit that I can rely on that is safe for me. And it also has like a backup plan just in case that first line of defense is not effective. So I kind of put those plans in place. So there's like different layers. So the person is protected, and that kind of reinforces the idea of being safe.
Okay, so
And then, yeah,
the cosmic tantric method takes about 90 days.
yeah.
And what's the result? Like, what's the result of that? Going through the cosmic tantric method.
Okay, so the results are basically being able to have like a higher level of emotional intelligence and understanding how you work as a person in times of trauma, and like healing the inner child. So this is kind of tapping into the spiritual side of things. So the inner child is the version of you that has kind of taken you through childhood and has had to deal with a lot of those traumatic events. But if you're not aware of the inner child just gets ignored. And this kind of like framework aims to open that dialogue with the inner child. So there are a lot of wounds that are resolved in that time frame. So it allows adulthood to be a lot more smooth sailing, and it can kind of like increase productivity, as well as opening up the increased connection in relationships. So it's not kind of based around fear and trauma with the relationships that are made due to childhood trauma.
So someone once said that we operate from two places. We can either operate from fear or love, and
Yeah,
that was very interesting. You know, um,
yeah,
and hearing what you just said now, it almost like you're taking them from operating from a place of fear, building relationships or approaching life from fear, and taking it to when they're operating from a place of love. And
yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like being heart-centered and kind of being open to receiving love, but also not feeling guilty about expressing love, and kind of like moving through life with confidence, and not kind of living too much in the trauma and being like, the trauma has defined me, I'm stuck in this space. Like, it's being empowered to move forward and set goals and to ultimately achieve them, because that baggage has been packed away nicely and it's kind of been dealt with, so that the person feels um, aligned with their vision and really opens them up to exploring who they really are, and then like living in flow, which is like resistance free. So things are not, so they're not working harder, as in like battling the trauma every single day.
mm, what's your motivation? Why why did you want to? What made you want to help people? What made you? Like being an entrepreneur. I mean, intuitively already, there's some things that you already have working for you. You
Yeah,
know, that are not necessarily learned, trained, but they just intuitively.
yeah,
Already some,
uh-huh,
you could have decided to do anything else.
yeah.
You would do good. You know. So, what made you want to do this? Like, what's the motivation for this for you?
Okay, so I would say that my motivation would be that because I'm a very nurturing person as it is, like I've always been this way. As a child, like I'm an empath. I've always been the ear that kind of gives advice to people. And when people follow my advice, they're like, oh, that was pretty good advice. I'm going to come back to you for more advice. And it's all about the kind of the internal glow that I get from helping somebody, because I have been at the very low end of like mental health and just feeling like there's no way out. And I do want to use my personal experience to help others realize that it doesn't kind of end where they think it ends. There's always a way out. And yeah, like that's kind of where I get my motivation from. So I just want at least one person to not feel like they're alone, because that is the scariest thing, is feeling alone, not trusting your thought process, and also not having a way out logically, and not having like a port of call for somebody who knows what they're doing to help you out so you feel safe. That's what I don't want anybody to go through that. So that's why I've kind of created this whole system.
And for those who are thinking, I want to connect with her. I love I love what she has going on. I love her message. You know,
Mhm.
what how can they connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
um i'm I'm available on Instagram or Facebook.
Mm.
So like, yeah,
You
just
can message.
send me a message. Yeah, message.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'm active with my messages. So yeah, I can
All right. Thank
reply.
you
We
very
can
much.
sort something out.
Thank you very much for coming. If you have one more thing, one more message for those, whether these people come to the cosmic tantra method or not, for
Mhm.
if you had one message to the world, concerning this whole thing, what would that be?
It would just be like, don't give up, and like understanding who you are, like taking time out to rest and take stock of like what's happened in the day or the week. Like, just prioritize yourself, because you will not be any use to anybody if you are burnt out. So take time to prioritize your well-being, and like put an appointment in your diary to actually honor and like recharge yourself.
Right.
So yeah,
And
definitely.
I wanted to end this, and now because I have to let you go. But now I have more questions. Okay, so one more I will go. You know,
No way.
what do you do in that time where you say, okay, now it's 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. I said I was gonna. Let's pick. Okay, 7 p.m. or
Mhm.
7 p.m., 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.
Yeah.
On Saturday,
Uh-huh.
I have in my diary me time. What do I do in me time? Do I
Okay.
sit around? Do I watch Netflix? Like, what do I do in me time?
uh what Yeah, you can watch Netflix. So like what I personally do is go I have like a list of things that I love watching, things that make me happy, and this is like healing your inner child. So even if you kind of go back to creating a pillow fort or something, I love doing that. I am so creative when it comes to that, and just being like silly and allowing that creative energy to flow out is really, really healing. So I can sometimes draw. I spend a lot of time making music, and just allowing these emotions to flow out as they do naturally. I also enjoy having baths. I love cooking as well. Um, I like making quite a few things, and just kind of like seeing what magic comes through not following a recipe sometimes. That's really interesting, to just kind of tap into my intuition and see what is made through how I'm feeling, and just experimenting.
One of the biggest things for me that I've taken from all of this is, without saying the word, you have expressed and you've showed mindfulness,
Mhm.
without saying the word, and which is one of the biggest things I'm taking from all of this. Some people cook every day, but that's not the point. They do it
Yeah.
without the mindfulness of enjoying the now, enjoying what's going on, whatever is going on in
Mhm.
that moment, all of that, and saying, this is my time, I'm going to do whatever I want with it, and nothing on earth is going to detect or direct that moment for me. This is what I want to do in this moment. I set up for myself, and this is what
Mhm.
I'm going to enjoy every bit of it. And the great thing is that over time, every bit of our life becomes that moment, and it becomes a habit. Like the way we do that one thing it spreads out into the way we do everything in our lives.
Exactly, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you very much for coming, and
Thank you so much for having me.